Hi Jade, welcome to the Outlet 10 discussion podcast. How are you?
I'm good, Anne-Marie. Thanks for having me.
You are more than welcome. Obviously, we've been talking, discussing obviously your business, you're a health coach, helping women nutrition wise. But I guess I also on their journey based on what they're doing. So I'm guessing starting off, you are a health coach more than anything. What made you want to get into that field?
Yeah, I am a nutritionist first and foremost. That is what I initially went to study in after I had my 10-year journey with burnout. So essentially, I feel like we get into the field of helping others through our own experiences. And for me, that was a lot of burnout through my 20s. First major burnout was when I was about 20. I was at my final year at uni. I was working a full-time job and my parents were going through a breakup. So it's that typical burnout picture of all the odds are stacked against. You're still pushing yourself, and it resulted in the usual being signed off work, shaming myself for feeling this way, and also going to the doctors, being given antidepressants, even when I wasn't depressed, which just made me feel worse at that time.
Mhm.
So that was really my first experience of debilitating burnout that caused my life to come to a halt essentially at that time. So that was a cyclical journey for 10 years. It was the
It's
shitty
a long
jobs,
time.
shitty relationships, grief, deaths. It just kept sucking me back in. They weren't always as bad as that initial debilitating one, but 2014 hit and it was like I had a personality transplant. I was not putting other people before me anymore. I was determined to make the changes in my life that I needed to. I went to the right wellness professionals, got the boundaries in place, and that was really my journey of deciding that I needed to help other women. It didn't need to be as difficult as what I went through, and that
Mm.
I could show them a different way. So the passion really came through my own experience and just continues to grow. Then the more women I meet and talk to, everybody's got their story, and we can all do with a little help. So it's really important. It's a real passion of mine.
No, I love that. In 2014, obviously, you've had this turning point. What was the turning point? What made you think, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I've got to change now? Or was it just like, how did you know? Why did you change?
Well, for me at that time, I was in a really dark place mentally. My thoughts were not nice. I
Mm,
didn't want to be here anymore. I feel like on reflection, when I think about it now, and I understand it because of my own journey and evolution, I suppose, and myself, but it wasn't myself that I didn't want to be here. It was that version of myself in my life that I didn't connect with anymore.
mm,
I had been in a long term relationship where I wasn't treated well and I was putting up with shit for a long time. And I didn't really see any positives outside of, I couldn't see past the day, I couldn't see past the minute, I just couldn't see anything positive ahead. And there was again different circumstances where a friend committed suicide, and then that really shocked me into just making change. And it was really make change, or what was the alternative for me.
yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah, yeah.
that was the long and short of it. And it was bit by bit. It didn't happen overnight, as any journey. There's no magic pill, there's no quick fix. It was just, I started gradually putting boundaries in place with those people around me that weren't serving a purpose. I started nourishing my body. I stopped the excessive exercise. I stopped punishing myself,
Mm,
calorie deficit, really skinny, but not healthy or happy.
yeah, yeah.
Just changing that narrative.
Yeah. And I do think, I think I've said this on multiple podcasts. It is definitely who you surround yourself with. I think it's a massive, massive thing. If you're hanging around with negative people, it just doesn't, for your self-esteem, your mental health, it just doesn't work.
Absolutely not. There's the theory that you are the five people that you spend the most time with. And if
Mm,
you're with emotional vampires, negative people. That's what your norm is in your head. And it's not always easy to get away from those people. And these aren't easy things to do. And that's why
No.
it is not a simple journey. You have to do it in stages. But it's the main thing that I seen with myself and that I see with women that I work with is you have to decide that you deserve better than what you're currently accepting or experiencing.
Yeah.
That's the shift. I don't know how it's going to happen, but this is changing.
And it will happen.
It does. It always does. It's that shift. It's the self-talk. It's the internal beliefs. Those are the things that need to shift.
Yeah. Yeah. So what would you say your role is as a health coach and nutritionist altogether?
I would say that my role is I'm like an investigator. I am going in there looking at where now, for example, you go to a GP and they don't really have any time to spend with you. It's a few minutes.
It's your 10 minutes, you're done.
10 minutes, run through it as quick as possible. You can only talk about one thing and that's it. So I am the complete opposite. I will ask a million questions. I've got a whole pre-consultation assessment where it is your family history, your symptoms, your conditions, bodily systems, and questions that you will have not even considered and think, why am I being asked this? Along with diet diary, along with burnout assessment. And that allows me to create a full picture of what is going on for the person, because the conventional medical system looks at bodily systems in isolation. So you go to a cardiologist, you go to a gastroenterologist, whereas these systems all depend on each other to work. We need to look at them synergistically and look at them. Also, not just looking at stressors, passion, purpose in your life, your habits, your routines, your nutrition. So really doing that deep dive. I do functional testing, which is really gold standard in terms of finding out exactly what's going on. But also, that's an investment. Any of this is an investment, and knowing that we can do GP tests and get those results and analyze them. And this is one thing I want to tell people to be aware of. If you get blood tests at the GP and they tell you that your results are normal, do not accept that as
you're okay.
Answer. Yeah, I would absolutely ask for those results and get more interpretation into them, because a GP normal result is not like my optimal result. And there are different factors, like results will say, for example, markers. You might need to look at markers in comparison with others to know what is actually going on. So yeah, a normal result is generally not something that I would accept as optimum. So yeah, with that, I realized over time, whenever I was doing the nutrition work, that a lot of people's boundaries are not because they don't know what they should be doing. It's because of the obstacles they have psychologically or in their own beliefs that they don't make those changes. That's where the health coaching comes in, because people need that accountability, that support, that extra guidance in terms of support and mindset, and why they are so resistant to making these changes they know they need to make, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I guess that leads on to my next question. What would you say is the main cause of burnout?
Yeah,
Lots of
burnout
things.
let's unpack it. So burnout was originally coined as a syndrome related to the workplace. So it was a guy called Herbert Freudenberger in the 70s, and it was all around corporate burnout. And it was all around the symptoms of emotional, which are still relevant. Those symptoms are still relevant. The emotional exhaustion, the fatigue that comes from caring too much for too long, which we can all relate to in some respect. I know I can.
Yeah.
And depersonalization, so that literal feeling detached from the world around you and the people around you, and also a decreased sense of accomplishment, so that feeling like no matter what you do, it doesn't make a difference. And those are still really relevant, but I don't agree with burnout just being related to corporate. I think burnout is a result of life circumstance. We can look at burnout and emotional burnout, emotional exhaustion. We
Mm.
can look at parental burnout. We can look at environmental burnout. Maybe it's your house, maybe it's your area, maybe it's the country that you live in. We can also look at relationship burnout, which doesn't just have to be a romantic relationship. That can also be your parents, your siblings, your friends.
Yeah.
And then you could have a physical burnout where, say, for example, reoccurring bad back or migraines or any of those things are really wearing you down and causing you to feel burned out. Also, you can have the pre-burnout, which is basically you're teetering on the edge of burnout for a long time and you're ignoring it and you're hoping that you'll wake up and feel better and don't do anything about it. So in terms of what causes us to be burned out, I feel like it's the domino effect of life, essentially.
Mm.
And then looking at our biochemistry, I suppose, we can't burn out. It comes as a result of a HPA axis dysfunction, which is your adrenal function, really, and the communication between the hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal glands. So this is when the communication breaks down between those glands, essentially. Then this jeopardizes your body's ability to produce hormones in the way that it should produce them.
Mm.
In a nutshell, and that's a really, I suppose, simplified version of what's going on. But it's good that we have this information now, and there's so much that we can do with this. And it's not the case that we just have to accept burnout as a diagnosis and this is always going to be the reality. There's so much scope for improving the reality with it.
Yeah. There's that light at the end of the tunnel, once you get through it. I mean, as I said, when I started the business, it's like a lot is, going on. And yeah, I did probably suffer from burnout. I think now, from that place to now, I've kind of got myself into a routine, eating well, exercising, and everything else. But another thing I was going to say, which I feel is part of burnout, is kind of saying yes to everything. Like for me, it was that fear of missing out. Like, it's a new company, opportunities. Oh my gosh, I've got to see my friends, even though I'm tired. What would you say to people that, say yes to everything? As I said, that FOMO, that fear of missing out. What is the best way, as I said, mentally, I guess, to say no? It is okay to say no.
This comes back to the boundaries, which are not the easy things to start doing when, say,
Mm.
for example, your lifelong relationship with boundaries is saying yes to everything around you. I don't know, let me tell you that two of the main things that I see with women who are more predisposed to burnout is people pleasing tendencies and perfectionism, the two P's, and they are a double whammy and they have a huge impact. And the thing I would say is if you feel like you're always saying yes, before you have that tendency to say yes, ask yourself, am I saying yes because I want to do this for myself? Or am I saying
Mm.
because of my perception of what other people's expectation is of me? Am I
Yeah.
doing this because I don't want to let them down? If it's something that you want to do, then that's different. But I think it's always thinking about, for you, is this something that you want to do? And maybe if you are feeling a bit more stressed and burned out at the time and you've got a lot of things being put your way in terms of maybe events or social things or whatever they are, asking yourself before you commit to it, is this feeding into my future self goals, my me 3 months ahead that's more refreshed and energized and revitalized? Is me going to this event on a Wednesday night and having midweek drinks something that will feed into me feeling better? Maybe not.
Mm. Mm.
Maybe I don't need to go. And also maybe just choosing the things that you do go to. I'm really enjoying those things, because it's not saying you can't live your life and do the things you want to do. It's about, again, those boundaries and really asking yourself, truly, is this something that I need to do or something that will serve me, if that makes sense?
Purpose. Yeah, of course. Of course. As I said, I totally agree with you. It's like you make that choice. Am I doing it for me? or really am I pleasing my friends? Is it my, work colleagues, whatever it is? And as you said, you've got to put those boundaries into place. Otherwise, yeah, you just say yes all the time, all the time.
When you start saying no, it's like it's like a whole new word.
Yeah,
It is.
yeah.
And I feel like then it nearly becomes, I know for me, I know you're based in London. I lived in London for
Mm,
3 years and I loved London. I love London. It's got a piece of my heart. It's such an amazing city. And the fact that there was always something to do, always new
always.
experiences, you will never get bored in London. That is
Mm,
for sure. But for me, when I was working a full-time job, I was studying my nutrition and I was burning the candle at both ends. And I did that for 3 years and I was severely burned out by the time I got back.
mm,
I always said I want to go back to London. I really want to go back there. But for me now, I've got a real connection with nature here in Ireland. It's taken me, I've been back in Ireland for 7 years in October. So I've been back quite a while. And I would say
yeah.
maybe only last year did I truly let go of the notion that I would move back to London again. Like now
Mm,
I realize, but it took me that 6 years to actually slow my brain and
yeah,
body down and to know the nervous system regulation and the safe feeling with the quietness, because that's the thing. If you're a high energy, type A, driven, go, go, go personality, it doesn't feel comfortable to rest and switch off. It doesn't come naturally.
no. No, 100%. I mean, I just went on holiday and I think it's just the norm. There is no relaxing. I've got to see what's going on here, who's saying what email it is. So, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. The rest
It's
thing
always
for
go,
me
go,
doesn't
go.
always. I'll sit and watch the TV sometimes and I'm like, shoulders are up here and why do I not feel relaxed?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But being mindful of that and recognizing it, it's like I say with any of this, it's a journey, it's a
Yeah.
process.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
goes
yeah.
on for life.
Yeah. I mean, you just touched on nutrition and obviously going out and everything else. I mean, nutrition again, it's all gut health, drinking your water, being hydrated. Again, to kind of switch habits to go down that route, as you said, it's like the saying no to people. Again, it's about changing your routine. I guess, isn't it, in a nutshell? What is the best way to kind of navigate nutrition wise and not eating rubbish, basically? Because it makes you feel rubbish.
Yeah, for sure. Before we came on, we had a quick chat about some of the unrealistic standards that are set
Yep.
for wellness. There's some crazy stuff out there. My view is always going with a simple, realistic approach initially, especially if there's burnout going on. There's no point in me saying, Anne Marie, you need to do these 20 things in the morning before you go to work, or, it's not going to work for you. So it's being realistic.
Mm,
And I'm a big advocate for an 80-20 approach. So 80% of the time you've got your whole foods, your balanced meals, and then 20% of the time you can have a more relaxed approach. Whenever you're in a city setting, it can be a high demanding job and a busy social life. I get it. There's a lot going on. Small things like whenever you're out for dinner, get an extra portion of veg, get some salad. If you're having drinks, have some water in between times. Whenever you know you're having a night out, make sure that you're nurturing your body before that. Add your electrolytes to your water. Get a castor oil pack, supports liver detoxification. Also I think being selective about your nights out in the midweek when you know you've got early mornings. So sleep is a huge one. We can't get sleep back. That's one thing that we can't get back. And it's basically the most restorative process that we have in our toolkit. So I would say trying to optimize sleep as much as possible, having
mm,
routines around that, really key. And if you are in a very high high intensity job and role, then reminding yourself that rest is productive, that even though it doesn't come easy all the time, that it's important. And rest doesn't have to be lying down and meditating for 5 minutes. It
Mm.
can be connecting with your breath for 1 minute. It can be going outside and looking at the sky when you're inside and just realizing that you're not just contained in this building all the time. Or it can be connecting with a friend, a colleague. There's many different ways that we can rest. It's just knowing which one will be good for you at that time.
At that time, yeah. I mean, yeah, sleep is, for me, it is everything. I will not even lie to, I'm in bed by, I think, 8:30. And then it's like I'm up at, 6 o'clock. But I think because I'm in that routine, if it is any later, I'm a nightmare in the morning. So that is the one thing out of everything that I make sure I do
That's
is
good.
sleep. As you said, you can't get it back.
You don't like, it is one thing that you can physically never get back, lost sleep. And
Mm,
I would say for me, sleep was one of the main light bulb moments for me in recognizing that I was on the right journey and path. I never slept well. I always was that waking up in the middle of the night, waking up feeling unrefreshed. And I went to the holistic therapists. I made changes with my nutrition, with my
mm,
supplements, with my routines, and I started going to bed at 11 and waking up at 7 a.m. without waking up in the middle of the night. And I had
yeah,
never experienced that,
yeah,
which is crazy to say. And that for me was like, you cannot argue with the biochemistry of the body and what's actually working and switching into gear. So that sleep for me, that was a huge thing. And now it's so sacred. It's just something
yeah, of
I
course.
don't want to interrupt or forfeit at all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, as you said, it is important. And people run on no sleep and everything else. So yeah, I 100%. Also, again, it's knowing your body and what it needs, which is also very important. Obviously, with you being a health coach as well, statistically, do you know who suffers more from burnout? Is it men or women, or is it quite equal?
Unfortunately, women are more susceptible. I
Mm,
would say that there's different aspects to consider with it. So we've talked about some of the things that can cause us or lead us to be burned out. And things like for women, if they're chronically stressed, one of the first things to go is the hormone balance. And that then has a domino cascade effect on things like hormonal dysregulation symptoms and conditions, whether that's PMS, whether that's irregular painful periods. It can be debilitating perimenopause, menopause, even more intricate conditions like endometriosis.
mm,
So that's like another layer that women have. Then, when adrenaline levels are elevated, this can then depress the production of estradiol in the ovaries, which again feeds into that hormone imbalance, dysregulation. And also, elevated cortisol feeds into a process that's been known as the pregnenolone steal, which has an impact on our progesterone levels, which also feeds into the hormone dysregulation. So there's that whole side of it. Then we look at surveys. 80% of women suffer from hormonal imbalances, and then many are unaware and just accept these symptoms as normal. I don't know if you've heard about the women's health gap.
I haven't.
This will blow your mind, and it's literally insane because women basically spend 22% more of their lives in ill health than men. And this equates to an insane amount of days, years lost in their life due to poor health. But women actually live longer. They're just less well when they're alive. And there's thought to be 9 conditions that feed into this health gap. So a lot of like hormonal things, breast cancer, things like endometriosis, I mentioned, menopause, PMS, hormonal migraines, even things like postpartum hemorrhage or cervical cancer, things like maternal hypertensive disorder, which is high blood pressure, or maternal ischemic heart disease. So these are 9 conditions that feed into the woman's health gap. So that can leave you more predisposed to burnout. And then again, never making a sweeping statement that men don't care about things, because obviously that's not true. But I just think that women put a lot more pressure on themselves in certain circumstances, like maybe in the family, they feel like they have to be on top of caring for everybody. They're always
Yeah.
thinking, I have to get the kids present for their friend, or get a card, or the dog has to go and get its jabs. And not saying that men don't care about these things, but in a family role, women generally take on those responsibilities. So that can, I suppose, leave you to be more susceptible to burnout.
Yeah, 100%. I guess, as you said, I just feel like sometimes us women take on everything when really, we shouldn't. But yeah, it's just kind of, again, probably the norm. As you said, going to work, doing this, meeting up with friends after, you've got to do work. So no, I do agree with that. I do agree with that.
Yeah.
We just take on more.
Definitely. And it's learning, again, going back to the thing that you were asking about, saying no and setting boundaries rather than saying yes all the time. You
Mm.
can do that. It just doesn't come naturally all the time.
Time, yeah. So, I mean, putting that aside, obviously, once you get to that point, it's a problem, you've got to change. What suggestions, I mean, do you give to clients or in general that kind of want to change their lifestyle, nutrition? How do we avoid the burnout? Is it taking vitamins? Is it speaking more? What would you say is the main key?
That's a big question. Yeah, very good question. And one thing that I will say, and I think I've said it before already, is that it's a life journey. It's something
Mm,
that you will always be on that road to progression with it. And whenever I start working with a client, I always get the same thing from them. In the first week, they're ready. They want to do 100 things. Tell me what to do. And
it's that motivation to go.
I'm here, I'm ready to go, and I send them away with, okay, I want you to drink your water. I want you to focus on a few minutes a day of breath work, and I want you to really think about the way that you're speaking to yourself in your head. And they're always like, it just feels like really slow, like I'm not doing anything, like,
Mm,
and that's the point, because we're trying to slow things down, and that's what we need to do.
yeah.
So having that, have putting it in an overarching theme, okay, and into the ethos of simplifying things. Over the years, my theory has come to 3 things. There's 3 things that I want you as a burned out woman to focus. It will always go back to these 3 things for your focus. Nervous system regulation. Your nervous system is basically entwined in every cell, every organ in your body. It affects everything.
Mm,
It affects the gut inflammation, the thyroid issues, the hormonal imbalances, the stress, anxiety, all those things. So, nervous system regulation, that is a multitude of things that we can do in order to support that. So, simple things like making sure you're hydrated. When your body's dehydrated, it's activating your body's stress response. When
yeah.
you're fasting in the morning, not eating breakfast is a really common thing that burnt out stressed women do, because their cortisol is going and they don't have an appetite because their body's in the stress response. Literally weaning your body back into feeling hungry in the morning, having a breakfast, not fasting. You don't need to be in starvation mode, no more calorie deficit. We don't need to be focusing on losing weight when we're burned out and stressed. There's a time to focus on weight loss, and it's not in times of high stress and burnout. You're literally going to make that the worst process for yourself ever. When you're in a more relaxed, steady mindset and balanced state, weight loss can be something that can feel like a more pleasurable experience rather than and I'm speaking from experience here, I've done the whole being completely burnt out whilst intermittent fasting and all the rest of it. So, and also nervous system regulation comes down to things like stopping the excessive exercise, maybe doing some walking, maybe doing some stretching, yoga, somatic work is amazing, which is it's all about sending the signals to your body that it's safe. Because even though you look at your surroundings and you think, okay, I'm here, I'm in my office, there's no danger around me, there's no saber-toothed tiger coming trying to attack me. But on a cellular level, your body does not feel safe because it hasn't had those signals. So things like somatic work can be like havening, or things like even just like facial massage, if you do like the gua sha, things like that. And so that's one nervous system regulation, which there are many different things. It could be having a warm bath at the end of the day. You know, there's many different ways you can do that. The second one is hormone regulation. And that isn't just sex hormone regulation. That is your stress hormones, your blood sugar regulation, your thyroid hormones. You know, these all link back to the nervous system regulation. These all link back to the stress. Again, things that we can do with this, for example, blood sugar regulation. If you're eating a lot of sugary foods, treats, cakes, biscuits, that is just sending your blood sugars on a roller coaster throughout the day. And also fasting is not great. Looking at the types of food that you're eating and the time of the day that you're eating them.
Yeah.
You know, if you're getting up and having 2 croissants from Pret for your breakfast with a coffee, that's like a double whammy of like blood sugar spike and stress hormone spike. Whereas if you decided to have oats with some protein powder and some berries, and then you had that and you had your coffee after you ate that, then that is like the difference between night and day for your blood sugar regulation, your stress hormones. And that has a huge, huge impact, especially with women with hormonal imbalances. It's so, so important. And then the third thing is connection. And the first connection is the connection with yourself, because for so long you've been running away from yourself. You have been ignoring every signal that your mind and your body has given you. So it's getting back to what story am I really telling myself here, and what do I actually want to do? Then that will feed into your connections with the people around you, your relationships, your loved ones, but also connection with your environment, nature, the outside world. You know, that is huge. Nature is such an amazing tool. And even if you are in a city, I know when I lived in London, I would always be like, you know, nat to like any green space, the common, any green, I'd be there and just get the shoes off and try and get my feet in the earth. But again, even like I spoke about before, it can just be looking up at the sky. Wherever you are, you can look up and see that you are connected to nature, and that has such a soothing effect on the nervous system as well.
Yeah, of course. No, Jade, honestly, thank you for your time today. There's one thing I've taken is what you said about the fasting. I usually eat after 12, but no, I do agree. I need to get back into eating breakfast, having that routine, 3 meals a day. So no, 100%. But honestly, thank you for your time today. Obviously, I think you've given some really good tips in terms of, you know, burnout, nutrition wise, how it all goes together. Last question I want to ask you. So obviously, I named my company Outlet 10 Discussions. You know, as you said, we all have points in our life where we kind of need that outlet. When you do, you know, need an outlet, you need to talk or you need to vent, what do you aim to, how do you get through that basically? Is it going for a walk? Is it speaking to your friends? What is your outlet when you're dealing with something?
I would say nature and connection with outdoors is huge for me. I am really lucky to have a park right beside me, which is really nice. And just looking around, being mindful of the surroundings, and just, I suppose, whenever I'm doing that, disconnecting from my phone. I've even got to the point where I don't like to feel my phone in my pocket. For or you know, if I've got my hand in my pocket and I can feel my phone, because that is like a connection to work. So just
Yes.
disconnecting from that, putting it in my bag so I don't have to feel it, and just focusing on the breath. And yeah, I'm really lucky to live not far from the sea as well,
Oh, lovely.
which is so huge. And there's one thing I heard recently, and it's was ask yourself what got you into the flow state when you were a child, when you were young, and how you can bring more of that into your life now. And when I was young, I wanted to be a marine biologist. I was obsessed with dolphins and the sea,
Mm.
and I adopted a dolphin called Bubbles and had this little. So the sea is huge for me, I think also. Even it doesn't need to be getting in the sea, just being near the sea is
Yeah, hearing it or yeah,
yeah,
yeah. No, that is really, yeah, lovely to be by the sea.
really nice. It's not
Lovely.
always warm. We're in Ireland, but you know, it's still nice.
No, it's nice, nice. No, but thank you for your time today. As I said, I think the tips that you've given, how to navigate burnout, things that you should do have been great. Obviously, we'll put on your socials, your links. If anybody, yeah, obviously needs some tips from you, they can get in contact with you as a health coach, and everything else. So, yes, thank you for your time today, Jade.
Thank you.
You are welcome. No, you are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.